Hello everybody and welcome, my name is Ryan and today I'm going to be teaching you about the different legacy paths in Civilization 7. Specifically, economic, gold, trade. I will be teaching you how to win the legacy path on every single age in the game, as well as then how to win the game in the modern age. So sit back, relax, trust me to take you through this. Let's dive in. You join us at first in the Age of Antiquity, the first of 3 ages in Civilization 7. I would recommend that we go to the top left hand corner of the screen and click on the Age Progress button, which shows you the 4 legacy paths of this age. Specifically, we're going to be looking at economic. Click this button, Track Progress. This will bring a series of quests up in the top left-hand corner of the screen. If you follow these, you won't go too far wrong. Now, the economic legacy path Antiquity is called Silk Roads. Simply, you need to assign 20 resources to your settlements. What does this mean? Well, on the map, if we click on this little lens, we can turn on resources. If this is ticked, you can see on the map there are multiple resources scattered around the map, such as this horse and this incense. You can also see others like the marble, the camels, and the silk. As the game progresses, you will find opportunities to deploy population as rural improvements. In Roma, I have a plantation down on the incense, and this means that I have improved that resource and I have allocated it into my empire. To find these, click on the little leaf button in the top left of the screen. This will show you the resource allocation, and we can see that we have 2 resources, camels and incense, as well as a bunch of other resources at the top. This is an important distinction that we need to take. Some resources apply on an empire basis, such as ivory, wine, marble, iron, silver, gold, and horses. They do something that applies to my entire empire. Some are allocated on a settlement by settlement basis, such as the incense and the camels. Every settlement has 1 space available to have a resource applied to it, but you can increase this, and there are several buildings that do this. If we hop into the tech tree, we can see, for instance, the market. This building increases the number of resources that may be assigned to a settlement by 1. The lighthouse increases it by 2, and in the civic tree, there are also other things that can increase this, like the Colossus Wonder, increasing it by 3. And in commerce, there is a policy that increases resource capacity by 1 in cities. In order to achieve Silk Roads, we need to assign 20 resources to settlements. The first way of doing that is fairly simple. As we get more and more settlements, we improve more and more resources. Find things on the map, such as cotton, or jade, or maybe even gypsum, that apply to cities or settlements. Stack more and more of these and allocate them as you go. The more you have, the closer you'll get to 20. Remember that empire resources do not count. It has to be resources in this section of the box. If you run out of capacity, they'll all store it on the left-hand side. It's an awful lot to get, so we're going to have a look back at the quest. The first quest is to research Code of Laws. This is a civic found here, and it unlocks the Merchant. The Merchant is a civilian unit that establishes a trade route that imports resources from a foreign settlement. To show you this, I'm going to buy a merchant. If I click on it, you can see that you see a possible trade route screen. Now, some settlements will be out of range, like Argos. This is simply too far away to trade with. However, if you see green on the map, this is a settlement that you can trade with. You can have 1 trade route with every single civilization in the game, and you use these to collect resources. So I'm going to move the merchant into the Axum territory of Isabella. Once it's in the borders, I can press this button, Make Trade Route. A road is built, and now I can see that all of the resources that are being made in this settlement have been cloned, and I can now apply them into my nation. So we'll pop in the extra food and the extra culture. Lovely. If I want to make a second trade route with Isabella, unfortunately, I have no more capacity. You can only send 1 route to every civ. However, you can increase this. Simply save up a little bit of influence, go to the diplomatic panel and click Improve Trade Relations. This costs about 50 on standard speed, but permanently increases the number of trade routes you can have with the civilization by 1. Now, I can make another trade route. Let me take you to another save file later in Antiquity. You can see on this one, I have assigned all 20 resources to my settlements. I established trade routes by learning Code of Laws. I then made a bunch of trade routes to other people's lands. To do this, I improved trade relations several times to make sure that I could have multiple trade routes with my allies. Then it was a case of just assigning 7, and then 14, and then 20. You can see this settlement has been settled on the continent below me to put trade routes in range with 1, 2, 3, 4 settlements of my ally. I had to press the trade relations button several times to do this, and the result was something that looked a little bit like this. You can see my capital capital actually has resources up to 15. It's a huge improvement. To do this, I built a couple of wonders to help me. Of all of the Antiquity legacy paths, economic is probably the easiest to casually do. Simply spread your network as far and wide as you can and make sure that you're using merchants and improving trade relations to get as many of these routes down as you can. Focus on settling by resources and make sure that every resource in your lands has been improved so it can be allocated to your cities and other settlements if needed. We now find ourselves in the exploration age. Now, if we move over to the economic legacy path, we find treasure fleet. Remember to press track progress. The quests this time will ask you to go for cartography and astronomy. This lets you move units over the deep ocean into distant lands. You can see the homeland continent is separated by a bunch of islands, and then we have the distant lands beyond that. Next, it asks you to put a settlement down by distant lands treasure resources. Now you'll note that between ages, all of the resources change. A lot of them have different abilities, and some of them are removed from the game entirely. Take a look at the continent lens. You'll see that one of the continents has this beautiful little purple arrow. This means that it's distant lands, in this case the orange continent. And these settlements will have all of the treasure resources. Some resources simply give effects if you move your cursor on them, but however, other resources, like the spices, you'll note has a different description. Creates treasure fleets when connected to a coastal settlement. Go around the map and find as many of these treasure resources as you can. So Hastings has one, Everwick has multiple, 2 sources of tea and another spice, and Bayo has one more. You'll find them scattered around the continent, but you'll also see that sometimes the AI has them. Conquering never hurts anybody. Just note, sending a trade route to a civilization with a treasure fleet does not give you the treasure fleet. So unfortunately, you have to settle these for yourself. Now there's a little clarification that the quests kind of forget to tell you about, but once you own treasure resources, you have to unlock shipbuilding as a tech. Once you unlock shipbuilding and your units can move around ocean terrain, you will then see that any settlement with treasure resources has a little additional piece of information on the resource tab. It will count down how many turns until a treasure fleet spawns, and then it'll tell you how many points worth of treasure it has on it. Your mission is to gather 30 points worth of treasure and return them to your homelands. Quite simply, treasure resources will spawn as treasure fleets. We can see one that has been produced in Hastings. Find your homeland and find any single tile. Doesn't matter which one it is. It doesn't have to be a port. It can just be a little piece of coast connected to a settlement on your homelands. Then move the treasure fleet to it, and once it arrives, press unload cargo. It will then give you treasure points depending on how many resources it had in. This one had 3 points worth, and that'll give me 150 gold. 300 if you're on standard speed. Remember, you have to unlock shipbuilding to receive treasure fleets. Also remember that they can be attacked. This is more of a problem in multiplayer. So in this save file, for instance, as I roll forward the turn, you can see I have a treasure fleet spawn here, and over in the settlement here. It could be very advisable to make friends with the AI to allow your units to move through the territory nicely. So I'm going to ask for open borders and move my fleet through. It may also be wise to escort the treasure fleets with naval units. You can use your carracks and other boats, as well as your fleet commanders, to protect treasure fleets and bring them home. Otherwise, what happens is you find your treasure fleets, like for instance, I'm at war with Xerxes. He's left one right here, so I can go and attack it and just be a nightmare and end up sinking it. This captures the treasure fleet for myself and means that I can now bring it back to my lands. Thus, there is quite a war aspect in the economic path. The quests simply ask you to gain 5 resources, then 10, then 20, and then 30. Build up a strong navy and settle as many treasure resources as you can, and you'll be there in no time at all. Each resource in a settlement provides 1 point. So if this treasure fleet is worth 3 points, this one is only worth 1, because this settlement doesn't produce anywhere near as much treasure. So keep in mind that some settling spots are better than others. For instance, there's silver, and gold all producing treasure. A settlement around here would give 3 points per turn, whereas over here, well, there are no treasure resources at all. This would give me no points whatsoever. It also means you start coveting enemy cities. Daha, not owned by me, has 2 separate treasure resources. Taking this from Shungshak would be an incredible improvement for me. It's also worth noting there is basically no treasure on the islands around your homeland. You have to find distant lands to find the treasure. And finally we enter the modern age, the third and last age of the game, and unlike the others, this legacy path leads to a victory condition. For the economic railroad tycoon legacy path, you unlock the World Bank. Again, make sure you track the quests and go through the steps that it's asking. Step 1 is to research industrialization and build a rail station. You can find this down here at the beginning of the tech tree. The rail station is a building that takes up the entire tile and acts as a transportation hub. You can use it to move units around the map. Simply take a unit, stand it next to a rail station and press the move by rail button. You can then see that I can teleport it to any connected settlement that has a rail station, like so. Handy. It's worth bearing in mind, if you want to connect rail stations over bodies of water, you need a building called a port. A port on two different sides of the body of water will extend the route if a rail station is built on the other side. For instance, this settlement has a port and a rail station. If I move across the water, I can find this island. Now we're going to build a port in this island nation and then a rail station over here. This should mean that if I now press the rail button, if it's close enough, I can move over the body of water. Be aware there is a limit to the range on this. So this is a good example. I have a howitzer and now I can move across the water using two rail stations and two ports. Once you've connected a few settlements by rail, you then have to unlock mass production. You can find this just along the tech tree, and this will unlock the factory. Now, once again, you may have noticed your resources have all changed. There is now a new category called factory resources. These cannot be put into any settlement. That is, at least until you build a factory in it. You can see my capital now has a factory. Let me clear the resources out. If I apply a resource to this city, such as citrus, you'll notice that citrus has now appeared by the factory icon. This means that the factory is processing this resource. That gives me an empire-wide bonus of 5% production towards training naval units, a big bonus. And I can then stack multiple copies of citrus into this city. The benefits also stack, so now I'm getting 25% bonus. Why do I want to do this? Well, I have to earn 500 railroad tycoon points. Each resource applied gives me 1 point per turn, so currently Beijing is earning 5 points per turn. However, if I scroll around, you can see that I have 7 fish in this factory, 4 chocolate in this one, and I can move this around to put quinine in this city. So now I'm earning almost 20 points per turn. You can only do this in a settlement that has a factory, and you can only build factories in cities that already have rail stations. So it's important to build up the rail stations around your empire. The more factories and rail stations you have, the quicker you can achieve this victory. And remember, you can still send out merchants at any point. For me, they're called Hangshangs, but the more resources you trade for, the more options you have to fill your factories up. It's also worth bearing in mind that each factory can only have one type of resource. So because I've got quinine in this city, I can't also put tea in it. So save factories with bigger resource capacity for the resources you have multiple copies of. Although you can have two separate cities doing the same thing if you want. Eventually, you'll generate 150 points, then 300, and then 500. Once you have all 500 points, you will unlock the World Bank victory condition. This is fairly simple. It unlocks a unit called a Great Banker. This unit has 8 movement and cannot be killed. It can also teleport between capitals, and that's what it needs to do. You have to move it one by one to the capital of every single civilization, and once it's there, press this button, Activate Great Person. This will establish a World Bank office. To do this, it costs you gold and influence. The better your relationship with a civ, the cheaper it is. So if I'm allied, the cost is barely any gold at all. If I am at war or hostile with a civ, it costs a large amount of gold and influence to do. So you have to make sure your gold and influence per turn is fairly high. All you need to do is activate them on every single capital in the game. It even tells you which ones to do. So right now, I've used it on every single capital except from St. Petersburg and Kampala. So I'm going to press this button, travel to city, and if I look around, there's St. Petersburg because it's green. So I will click down, it's teleported, and next turn I can press the button. Russia is currently allied to me, so if I activate the Great Person, it will not cost much gold or influence at all. No, it was almost free to do. Now you can see that I have to teleport just one more time. Travel to city, teleport to Kampala. This is the last one, so I press the button and establish the World Bank in my capital with a few fireworks. Doing that wins you the game. It's quite simple. Build railroads, build factories, earn your points, and move the banker around around the map. Huzzah! Before we finish, there's a couple of points to note when it comes to setting your game up. Firstly, some leaders are better than others. Look out for leaders that have economic as an attribute, such as Amina, who has increased resource capacity in cities, very helpful for most of the conditions. Other examples are Hatshepsut, Isabella, Machiavelli, Napoleon's Emperor persona, Pachacuti, Xerxes as King of Kings, but also as the Archimead. There are also mementos that will help you. Any memento that gives you an economic attribute point will always help, but gold is generally very useful to buy buildings and to buy merchants. Travels of Marco Polo can explore and turn map revealing into large amounts of gold. Pochteka backpack can give you 5 extra range on trade routes, really helpful for using your merchants. Royal mace can give you extra gold for each imported resource. Gold fluted fowl can increase the trade route limit with every leader, stopping you from having to use diplo favor. And green colonel's jacket can give you gold for every trade route you have. Remember, as you go through the game, gold is your friend. The more of it you have, the better. Settle wide, make sure you claim as many resources as you can, and make sure your trade routes are always maxed out. And keep an eye out for civs that give economic advantage. For instance, Aksum gives gold for resources and has a boat that can create trade routes, so you don't even need to make merchants. Egypt is very good at generating gold and trading, as is Persia. In exploration, Chola can increase the number of trade routes to each player faster than anyone else. Inca is flooded with a bunch of economic bonuses in the civic tree. Majapahit also has a number of bonuses. Ming China has a unique merchant who can create extra gold. Songhai has additional resource capacity in cities, as long as there are navigable rivers. And Shwani also has boosts in its unique improvements. And finally, in modern, America has production and bonuses that help you to improve resources, as well as a prospector. Mughal India gives you more gold than any other person. Qing China again has a unique merchant with a few bonuses for importing resources, but maybe you'll find your own path. Keep practicing and claiming gold and you'll be winning in no time. I've been Ursa Ryan. Thank you so much for watching. See you later. Goodbye.